Hello. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Josh Rude. I am a researcher of Old Norse religion at the University of Iceland, and I am the vocalist of the black metal band Nexion. I'm also heavily involved in this whole Nordic spirituality thing, whatever we want to call that. I'm making this video to talk about the whole historical accuracy slash authenticity discussion that's been going on regarding the movie Northman that just came out. And I've been asked already by a number of people, what do I think about the historical accuracy, whether it is historically accurate, whether it's not historically accurate, whether it's authentic. I saw the movie last night, and when I walked out of the theater, I was almost immediately approached by a reporter who did not ask me, did I like the movie, or what do I think about the movie. He asked me, how historically accurate is the movie? So let's talk about that. The answer to that question, from my perspective, is that the Northman is simultaneously absolutely not historically accurate. It is not an accurate depiction of life in the Viking Age. But it's also perhaps the most, if not one of the most, authentic receptions of the material that we have and the resources, which I have ever seen put into a film or a TV show or that medium. And what I mean by that is, of course, the question of the accuracy. Why is it not historically accurate? Well, a number of the ways that they dress, we have no record of that. But of course, we don't have a lot to go on with how they dressed it, anyways. A lot of the ideas and beliefs, and really the entire movie is very, very dark, very, very gritty, very brutal. And I'm sure my friends involved in medieval martial arts or the study of fighting techniques were probably squirming during the film, because even I had a little bit of a difficult time with the Hollywood-esque-ness of some of the fighting scenes, but it's okay. And to me, these things are okay. The film is dark, the film is brutal, the film is gritty. It is a dark depiction of a time period. And that is a choice. That was the artistic decision of Robert Eggers. And so I think that the question of historical accuracy needs to be weighed with artistry. What is the maker trying to say? Why are they using this material in this way? And also we need to keep in mind that he is not a researcher. He is not an archaeologist. He's not an expert in Old Norse religion or Old Norse society. He is a storyteller, a legend maker in modern form. And the original story, if we can say original story, is itself a legend. I think it's important for me to point out that not only the original story of the Northmen, it's primarily told by Saxo Grammaticus in the 1300s, talking about events that took place roughly the 800s. And his version is full of bullshit, full of exaggerations, and itself not an accurate depiction of whatever was going on 400 and 500 years before his life and his very Christian society in Denmark that he lived in. The sagas that we have, the Eddic poetry, the myths that we have, none of them accurately depict the events that occurred during the Viking Age, or even the beliefs of people during the Viking Age. The myths that we have are not accurate depictions of the beliefs of people during the Viking Age. So the whole question of historical accuracy is an onion. And that's why people like me research it and argue about it and write about it, because it's not so easy to talk about historical accuracy. You could take, and I think that it's worth mentioning, that you could take an article written by an archaeologist about a find. We'll say Upakra, a place in Skåne in southern Sweden, for example. They believe that they found what they call a temple there. We don't know what the temple looked like. We don't know what the ceremonies that took place in that temple looked like or how they were enacted. We have post holes in the ground, and we have artifacts, piles of spears, a jawbone here, a dead body here, stuff like that. And when you read an article about this, I find it very interesting. Okay, so here's a pile of spears. Okay, they were ritually placed here, this close to where the possible temple was, and here's a dead body with them. Oh, is this person sacrificed or what? We don't know. The data itself is interesting, but at the end, the most exciting part of archaeology, or even what I do, where we talk about the myths and we try to argue about what beliefs were like, is when you take that material together and you get creative as a researcher and you start trying to suggest perhaps what this material may have been used for. You start to get creative. You start to tell a story. So much of what we think the Viking Age was like is based on assumptions and ideas and beliefs and theories and storytelling. And that's by us, the dry researchers. Now, Robert Eggers is not a researcher. He is a storyteller. So I wouldn't expect him to be trying to create an accurate depiction of the past. And this is where I talk about authentic reception. When I watched the film, I was in many ways very excited and blown away at how much actual resource material, how many archaeological finds, how many little snippets of descriptions from around the Viking Age he takes and weaves together to create a cohesive system within the narrative of the film. For example, I have never seen, and this was a scene I was supremely excited to see. There are not many spoiler alerts, or there's not going to be that many spoilers here, but there is a scene with a man in a horned headdress chanting, holding two spears, while I will call them Ulfhednar, berserkers or wolf warriors, guys wearing wolf skins, howl and bang on their shields and chant "Hul, Hul," or something of that nature. And what I thought when I saw this was, this is drawn from a number of theories that researchers have, but you can take that scene in the movie right back to two main resources. One is a written description of Varangian warriors in Constantinople performing a ceremony. It's described in a resource called the Gothicon, and that describes these Varangian Scandinavian warriors wearing skins, dancing in a circle and smashing their axes and swords against their shields and chanting. And the second resource is called the Turslund plate. It belonged to, it went on helmet pieces. And it depicts a figure wearing a horned headpiece with two spears, possibly dancing, and a figure wearing a wolf or a bear skin. And there's a number of artifacts, a number of visual depictions of this horned headgear. There are descriptions of wolf warriors and berserkers, and a lot has been written about the ideas behind berserkers and Ulfhednar and shamanism, and there's a lot behind that one scene. And you see throughout the movie this idea of transformation between the characters, transforming in your mind, taking on the characteristics of something, or having your spirit wander elsewhere and come back to you. And this is an authentic reception of material, because Neil Price, who is an expert in Old Norse religion and who has written extensively about shamanism in the Viking Age, helped Robert Eggers. He was consulted on the rituals and the ideology, and so was my own advisor Terry Gunnell, who was an expert in ritual. And you could see their ideas throughout the film. I have never seen the Turslund plate foil depicted in a ceremony in a movie before. And it is believable that a group of raiders, a band of warriors who go out raiding and killing and living a very violent life, would have a cult based around Odin, involving ceremonies, getting into a headspace of shape-shifting and taking on the strength or the ferocity of a bear and a wolf, and performing ceremonies of the nature portrayed in the film. I thought it was fantastic. Was it historically accurate? Nobody can say. But it was a great use of material that we have. And we have a ton of material that gets glossed over or not used in TV shows and in music and in popular depictions of the Vikings, in favor of stupid stereotypes and tropes. There's another popular thing about Vikings, full of undercuts and face tattoos and leather vests and stereotypes and people calling them, "We are Vikings," and nothing deep. No reach down into the material that we have to try and create a narrative that could be drawn from something authentic. There's another scene. I'm going to describe this. I haven't read anything, any interviews discussing it, so I don't know if I'm guessing or not. But there's a temple in the film, and the temple itself, it looks like what we imagine, but do not know temples may have looked like stav churches, basically. And in the main room of the temple, it's dedicated to traditional, what you'd think of. There's Odin, and then there's other gods around. I don't think they name them. And you will notice on the floor there are little gold foils. These are called gullgubbar in real life, and we have found them sprinkled around at temple areas or cult houses and places like that. We don't know what they were used for, but one suggestion is, yeah, they were sprinkled for various reasons. Well, you see them in this film. In the back of the temple, there's a door. And on that door, there's a depiction, which does exist. I forgot the name of the stone it is, but there's a stone depicting a figure with horns who is chained up. that has been interpreted, rightly or wrongly, as Loki. Loki, a trickster god. Loki, a god of transformation. Loki, a god of barrier crossing and breaking rules. In the back of the temple is a door with the depiction of Loki on it. Through that door in the film is a stairwell or a ladder, a hole that goes down into a labyrinth beneath the temple. And it is in this labyrinth where there are depictions in the film of transformation and taking on forms that are not perhaps acceptable within society. And there is a priest. There is a priest who happens to also be a jester, a fool, a joker. And he's also a wise man. And he oversees ceremonies taking place in this area that's kind of set aside, beneath and away from the temple. And if you think about or you understand perhaps some of the ideas of Old Norse religion and the role that tricksters may have played, and Loki, for example, I thought this was supremely cool. Did anything like this ever exist? Who knows? But to take what we know, what we have, and to weave it together into a narrative, and one of the big things that I see throughout Northman is this idea of, as I said, transformation. It seems to be a movie about transformation. And I thought that this creation, this reception of what we know, what we think we know about Loki and about transformation and ideas about tricksters and the role of the gods and what temples looked like, I thought it was really well done. Really, really cool. And there's another thing you might notice when you watch the film. Freyr. When they pray to Freyr, they have a rattle, a sort of bell that it's a rattle that they shake while they pray to him. And we have found rattles like that. We have no idea what they were used for, but we have descriptions. Actually, Saxo Grammaticus again describes people in Sweden at ceremonies, perhaps associated with Freyr, jingling bells in an unmanly way. And so there have been researchers who have taken these rattles and said, well, maybe they're associated with Freyr. We don't know. We don't know. But here, this person has taken them and made a film depicting them being used in ceremonies. A fantastic reception of this artifact that otherwise just sits there, not alive in our current imagination. And to me, this is where it all comes down to being important. Is it important for something to be historically accurate? I, as a researcher, I value historical accuracy when I'm doing research. I want to know where things come from. But I also want these gods and these myths and this material that we have to be alive. I don't want it to sit in museums and in books that barely anybody reads. I don't want it to only exist in the stuffy conferences of academia. I want this material to be alive in modern myth, in modern legend, in modern ceremony. And there is not necessarily a right or a wrong when you're receiving, interpreting, and reusing the past. There is what makes sense. And I thought in many ways, many of the scenes in Northman were beautifully authentic in the context of the work of art he was trying to create. So when you watch the film, think of it as a dark work of art. Do not think of it as something that is historically accurate, but there is authenticity in it, in the reception and the uses of a lot of the resources that we have, a lot of the material, a lot of the archaeological remains, and a lot of the stories. So when you watch it, um, try to appreciate it as a, or at least think of it as a modern uh, reception and recreation. And I think you'll get more out of it than if you look for accuracy. Um, there was some cheese. There was some cheese. So, thanks for listening.